Hi and welcome to the channel. Now today it's the turn of the JVC KD-A3 cassette deck, and as you can see it's quite a nice smart looking cassette deck. This was donated to the channel by ANRS Mitchell, who previously donated a few items to me, a Technics receiver and also a JVC amp as well, and I've done a review on both of them on the channel if you wanted to go and watch either of those. And this is, I'm actually going to keep this. The other two items I actually kind of got rid of. Well, I say I got rid of them. I took one to the charity shop, first of all the Technics, and that was no problem. And I marched down there with the JVC, and all of a sudden that they've all got to be pack tested these days. The charity shop, I think they're just selling lamps and all that kind of stuff. I didn't seem to have any trouble, but I think something must have happened there. So I needed to be pack tested. So obviously I marched, but it's quite a distance. We was actually talking to me and Alex about sending stuff backwards and forwards, and it is awkward. If you have to get to a post office a bit out of the way, all that kind of stuff, because all this stuff weighs quite a bit and has to be well packed in a box and that, so it can be a bit awkward. So I weren't too pleased really. I thought I'm going to have to cart this back home. I'm knackered by the time I got down there. And anyway, cut a long story short, I stuck it on eBay. I thought, oh well, I don't want it, I'll stick it on eBay. And lucky enough it didn't sell, because I went down to the charity shop a couple of days later and apparently they found someone now that actually does some pack testing for them, so it's back at the charity shop now where I wanted it to be in the first place. Anyway, that's that. But I'm going to keep this, like I say, I'm going to keep this for myself because I quite like this deck. I've not got many tapes, to be honest with you. I think I've got about 10 or 12 tapes, not massive. I did have quite a few more actually, but I kind of got rid of them. I kind of like, when I moved and that, I thought, well, I ain't listened to that, I ain't got tape there. I kind of got rid of a few, and I wish I would have kept them now, you know what it's like. But anyway, I'll be looking out in the charity shops. It's a good place to find tapes. You used to pick them up for 50p, something like that. Cassettes and that, I've had a few recently. I think this one I picked up, $1.50. I mean, you can't go wrong really, but it's a few other bits and pieces anyway. Okay. So I'm going to do a little review of this cassette deck. I'm going to keep it fairly sweet, short, should I say, and sweet. Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I've done a little bit more of a maintenance kind of tips video previous to this. You may want to go and watch that. I'll stick a link up to that on the top there. But this deck here, I'm not too sure when it came out actually. I think it came out about 1978, 79, something like that. So it's getting on a little bit, but it seems to be all working fine. Like, I've had no problems at all. And Alex did say to me that when he first got it, it was a bit noisy, but he played and recorded a few times, it kind of cleared it. But since then, it's come to me and I've actually cleaned inside the record and playback kind of long, very long thin switches. I've given them a clean as well to make sure they're all nice and clean, so I'm getting good contact, so I'm going to get the best possible sound out of this deck. So yeah, I've played a few tapes back, so yeah, all in all it's a pretty good deck. I quite like this deck, you know, it's got quite a good sound to it. I think I've been playing quite a few pre-recorded cassettes I've played. I'd say quite a few, I've only got 10 or 12, but I've been playing a few of them on there, etc., listening to it. But this deck here, it's not got the normal Dolby A, Dolby B, Dolby C, Dolby S, shall we say, but that's a bit more nearer net this time than it was then, kind of thing. That's a more newer, and Dolby what's it called, I forgot the other one now, but you know what I mean, Saint X or whatever it is. It hasn't got them on it. It's just got their own system here. They didn't want to pay the licensing fees for Dolby, so they use their own system, which is called ANRS. And on here it's got on and super as well, so we've got super ARNS. So yeah, I'm just going to give it, I've done a few recordings on it and all that kind of stuff as well, but let's just go through a few features here. Look, two nice big meters we got here. These are quite nice and big, they look nice at night. We've got the little LEDs at the top here also flashing. We've got a counter here. We've got the normal kind of stuff here, play, record, eject, all that kind of stuff. We've got a record mute here. Then we've got our tape selector here, which you can have ferrochrome, metal, it all takes metal, or normal cassettes. And like I say, we've got this super ARNS, and we've got the mics and the phones and the power switch. Now the first thing I will say that I noticed straight away, when Alex gave it to me, it turned up. I stuck it on my little desk, I didn't have it here, and I thought, let's just see how it goes. I stick a tape on pre-recorded, stick the headphones in, and woof, oh, how loud's this kind of thing, bursting my eardrums kind of thing, really loud. And I thought, well, let's turn this down, because we've got an output level meter here. I say meter, it's not a meter, is it, Mick? It's a knob, a little control here for the output. So I thought I'll turn that right down, and I'll turn it down, I'll get the level I want. But it doesn't affect it whatsoever. This just does the line out. It doesn't do the headphones whatsoever, which I found a bit surprising, because the Sharp I had did do it actually done the output and the headphones as well, done both. But on here it doesn't. So I thought there must be a fault with it or something like that. I thought maybe something's gone. I did mention it to Alex, and he said he's got this, doesn't do that, and another deck he's got doesn't do that, which I was a little bit surprised. I haven't come across them, but maybe there is some decks out there that you haven't actually got control over the level of the headphones. So maybe something to be careful of if you're going to buy a deck and you're going to use headphones. So if you are going to use headphones and you buy a deck like this, you're going to have to get a pair of headphones with a little volume control in line with it so you can turn it down. But yeah, like I say, I've been listening to some pre-recorded, and yeah, it sounded quite nice. Yeah, I was quite impressed really, you know, for the deck it is. I thought this is sounding pretty good. I did try a few different ways here with the Super ANRS off completely. That sounded fine, but some recordings did sound quite nice with it on. Not every recording, it depends tape by tape there of the pre-recorded stuff. I'm talking about pre-recorded here. It did seem to depend tape by tape. Some of them just seem to enhance it too much, and everything sounded a bit too, just didn't sound quite right. It sounded a bit too bright, just sounded a bit, you know, just didn't sound quite right. So I had it in the off position. It did depend on what tape I was playing, but you're going to have a flick about with it anyway. And there's also the on position as well, rather than the Super ANRS position as well. So just have a little fiddle around maybe when you've got it playing just a pre-recorded cassette. I remember years ago when you used to get the ears, you think, I'll put up with the ears because I'm getting more treble, getting a bit more higher end out of it, so I'll put up with the ears. But I've noticed if you put that Super ANRS, which isn't, like I say, isn't Dolby, you're just getting a bit too much top end. It's just, and it doesn't quite sound right, you know what I mean? If you want it to sound nice, sound right, on some cassettes pre-recorded, you'd have to have a little fiddle about. Now, going on to actual recordings I've done myself, and I didn't really, I've only got about 3 cassettes here, blanks, and these kind of cassettes are all these. These are TDK CD-IN2 they're called, and these are the cassettes I've been using. These are the only ones I've got. And I've used these a few times before on other machines and that. They've been laying about a bit because what I did notice is that on a couple of recordings I did, and it's only a little bit, you only really notice it with the headphones, and I won't be putting the headphones in here, I'll use my amplifier with the headphones. Because I do listen carefully, very carefully. I remember years ago I bought a little Hawaii deck from a catalogue actually. It's from my next door neighbour. They run this catalogue thing, I don't know if it was K's or Littlewoods or something like that. And I had it on, and I could hear some very, very small dropouts where, you know, it all sounded just a little dip in the dropout. And I said to him, this is a faulty deck kind of thing. And the bloke who's, you know, in charge of the club, he come and listened, and he couldn't hear it, but it was there. Obviously, you know, if you're really listening out for it, I could hear it, and he said, no, there's nothing wrong with it. And in the end, I kept it, and I settled for what it was. But I think it's more down to the cassettes itself rather than the actual machine. It is down to the cassettes, obviously, depending how good they're made, etc., and all that kind of stuff, and which cassette you buy and all that. So I did have a couple of very small dropouts here. You only notice them really when you've got the headphones on. When you're listening to it with the speakers blaring out, it was hardly noticeable. But there's only a couple. It wasn't like every 5 minutes or anything. It's just here and there. But I think it's down. It's not the deck. It's actually down to the cassettes I've been using. So I just thought I'd mention it because it did happen, kind of thing. But other than that, I recorded it with it on the off position first of all, and it sounded fine. You know what I mean? It sounded okay. But I did prefer it with a Super ANRS. So I recorded with it on, and I played back with it on. Now you can alter this backwards and forwards. Like I say, you can record with it on, then turn it off, and all that kind of stuff. And depending which way around you're doing it, you can kind of increase a little bit at the top end, and sometimes it don't sound quite right. Then you can decrease it, kind of thing, and it sounds a bit more dull, shall we say? It sounds duller. So it's just a bit of mucking about with that mainly. But like I say, really for the recordings, when I start recording, if I do a few recordings myself, I may just have a little tinker around. I'm going to use the Super ANRS on this deck. I quite like the sound. It sounded natural. It sounded good. So you know, I'm really pleased with it, to be honest with you. You know, so like I say, when Alex sent it over, I said I'm going to keep this, and I thought to myself, fingers crossed it'd be okay. I did have a few other decks recently. I had a Sharp RT3151, was it? I think it was. It wasn't quite right. You know, I think it's a better deck. All them components are quite old in there, and they can kind of be slightly off spec. And I think that was quite, you know, a reasonable amount off spec. And maybe that made it need new heads or something like that because it didn't quite sound right. I've got rid of that since. And many moons ago, probably about 5 years ago now, I did get hold of a NAD 6220, I think, and that was quite a nice sounding deck. It was quite a sweet sounding deck, but I think this sounds more natural. Too much on the sweet side, if you know what I mean, if there's such a thing. But yeah, it sounded a little bit too sweet for me. Maybe just a bit unnatural. Well, this sounds right analogy, very natural kind of sounding deck. Like it's not top of the range, I don't think. I can't remember how this actually sits. I think there's a few models up. The 5, 7 are above this. But for what it is, I don't know how much you're going to pay for this. I'm really guessing because I didn't look it up, to be honest with you. But I should imagine these are between about £40 and £50, £60, something like that. I don't really know. You're getting quite a good deck here, I think. You know what I mean? Like I say, as long as the belt's going, It's a nice easy belt to get to as well if you do have any troubles with the main drive belt. It's fairly easy to get to. You may have a little problem if you need to change the counter belt, it looks a bit more involved. But yeah, other than that, like I say, I'm quite impressed really. I quite like this deck. So yeah, it's got a nice, it's nice looking, and it's nice sounding, and it's natural sounding. It doesn't really do anything wrong, this deck, so I'm pleased with that. So that's it. That's a very quick review. Hopefully you've got kind of some idea of how it sounds if you're thinking about getting this particular deck. And do check out my other videos about maintenance and all that kind of stuff, and some buying tips on decks as well, because I know it's not for everyone, not everyone's into these cassette decks, but it seems to be a little bit of a resurgence. A few bands are bringing out something on cassette, and there's also bits and pieces that never come out on CD or anything like that, that are only available on cassette, obviously, if you can find them. Okay, until my next video, I'll say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all.